Breaking news before you go this morning. Dan Osborne planning to announce a run for U.S. Senate in the 2026 midterm election today. Osborne formed an exploratory committee earlier this year to potentially run against Nebraska Senator Pete Ricketts.
Also breaking, many across the metro waking up in the dark due to last night's storms. Most of the outages are in Douglas and Washington counties. No word on when that power will fully come back on.
And more breaking news here at the Alert Desk. It's now okay to keep your shoes on at some airports. A senior government official tells NBC News TSA will allow passengers to keep their footwear on as they go through security checkpoints. Some of those airports include Baltimore Washington International, Fort Lauderdale International, Portland International, and Philadelphia International. If a passenger does trigger the alarm at the scanners, they will be required to take their shoes off for additional screenings. But the source says the relaxation of these rules could expand nationwide in the near future. TSA first started requiring passengers to take off their shoes in 2006. Aaron.
All right, might be nice. More top stories now before you go. Nebraska Task Force 1 is heading to help recovery efforts down south in Texas. The task force will help to transport boats, cars, other equipment that will help to navigate areas devastated by the flooding.
The man arrested in the stabbing death of his elderly father will stay behind bars. William Pay was formally charged with first-degree murder. His next court appearance is set for next month.
The Douglas County Board of Commissioners will vote on appointing Tim Kavanaugh to county treasurer today. The board will also be given a presentation by the Public Building Commission on their proposed 2025-26 budget.
We'll get a status report on Omaha's streetcar project later today. Mayor John Ewing will present updates on the project. First Alert 6 will have the very latest on air and online with what we learn.